G'day and welcome to part 16 on the ZK Fairlane. And it was a really good fun chapter to do. And the reason is it was all basically just cake decorating. Putting stuff on and making it look pretty. There's still a bit to go before we started. I'm just trying to think. I've got to get all the fluids in and wire up the transmission and put a kick down on and this sort of stuff. But otherwise it's pretty much ready to go. So I hope you enjoy. So I've got to dress this thing. I was going to put the fan on. I'm not going to at the moment. It's been painted and it's been painted in enamel. It's just chewing up discs. You know, what do you call them? Scotch-Brite ones, trying to clean it. And yeah, I'll just get it hydroblasted. Just to make it look a bit nicer because it doesn't. I went to paint over it and then realised I was painting in exhaust paint. And that's kind of a chalky paint. It's a high temperature thing, so I'm not going to bother with that. The 6-cylinder wiring's here. That is the starter trigger, and I've got it coming out in the wrong spot. That's got to go down underneath the steering box. Pardon me, and under the exhaust manifold. There's no sense in putting it down here, I don't think. I think it's more likely to get heat damage there, because the exhaust is just in the vicinity. So I'm going to unwrap that to back here and then have it sublume going down, or I'll put it in some tubing or something and have it running down underneath the steering box straight into the starter. I think that's probably safer. Coil wiring, these are always good to keep, these connectors, the original Ford ones. I'm going to cut that back here. It's a little bit stiff, so I'll cut it back here and run it in. Well, you know, we've got with this. That's the choke, and the choke has another wire coming off the back of the alternator, so it only provides power when the actual alternator is rotating. I don't know what the other one is. I've got to try and recall what that is. Things like temperature sensor. This will be shortened because that's just going to be here. The pump is the original one we had on the XC. It's a Sagnor. It'll look fine on here. They did have a second series Thompson, I think. This is spacer 2, so I'm going to have to make a spacer, but this will sort of show me roughly how it sits. I'll just get that roughly started, and that'll sort of sit like that. I want to have a look at the fittings to make sure the fittings are going to fit alright, which they should. I can't imagine why they wouldn't. And I'll just have a look and see if I've got a spacer that'll fit that. So I've got two different types of pressure relief receptacles. I think that's the pressure relief valve. This female one, which was on the 6, and that V8 one off the XC. Now that 6-cylinder hose weren't made up to that. I thought this was a double-ended male thing and it came out and you had the same receptacle, but you haven't. Oopsie, sorry. The 6 used this sort of right angle adapter thing, so I'm just going to have to put that on, which I didn't expect to have to do, but it doesn't really matter. We can put it in. I might change out that O-ring though. Doesn't look too bad. This one's got a Viton sort of O-ring on it, which is still sitting proud. Actually, I might just throw that back in. And that just goes right in the back. Oh, there we go. Okay, so I've just got the belt sitting there temporarily, just to make sure it's sort of true. I've got to put the fuel pump, got to put that on. That's the spacer, which is rubbish, but it'll do for now. The alternator bracket's wrong. The later one is lower and uses this piece here that sort of goes in against there. It's bolted. Then the alternator bolts here. It sort of keeps the alternator lower and sort of more down there. This is an earlier one, so I'll try and find, well, it's kind of useless. That's the only bit of that I've got, and people want $1 million for each part, so I'll see what I can come up with, but I do want the original ones eventually. The other thing is I've got to put the cooler lines in, and I've got to do that before, you know, I do too much more, because they've got to sort of go right down there above the mount. And I would have put them in beforehand, but I decided not to, because I just wanted to get the engine in. So I'll just pop that fuel pump on after it changed those belts. That's a bit lumpy and bumpy, but it doesn't matter for now. That's fine. And I've got some hoses and bits and pieces I can put on as well. So fuel pump, Permatex both sides of the gasket, a little bit of grease on there where it runs against the eccentric on the camshaft. And should be good to put in. That was a big rookie mistake putting this in after the power steering. And I knew it too. You know. I've probably got a bolt that's too long. Oh no, that seems alright. There's normally a stud on them. Did I mention that before? I think I did. So, anyway, whoopsie. It wasn't easy to put on because, you know, the camshaft was obviously in a part. Or it stopped in a position where it was on the full stroke of the pump, if you know what I mean. So that old fuel pump block off now, I bought that I think in about 1988. We'll use that on the other Cleveland, the other 302 we're going to do for the XA wagon. I use that on the engine stand because I've got an electric fuel pump for it. Whereas the cars I always use just a mechanical one. So this one's out of the Fairlane, and I don't know so much if I get out of the like that sort of corrosion business going on. I've got a bit more down here. This one, it's probably alright. It might have gathered down there for some reason, I don't know why, but it does look like a leak to me. This was out of the XC. It was originally from the engine stand. We've got some sort of like little fun web spider going on down there, but I don't sort of care about him. So I might give it a wipe down and stick it in the car as a trial to see if it's going to fit. So I've just got that dirty shroud sitting in there, and I haven't got the rubbers for this yet. I'm going to put new rubbers in. But that is the right width. On me, I've got the slip holes, must be rusty. And that is going to work. That is out of a, I think a 5.8 litre XD, that shroud. I've had it for a long time, it's been sort of hanging up. And that is going to fit. Treat. I wanted to use it in the XC and then realised they're different. These are sort of offset a bit. But looking at that, I mean, I haven't got the blades on at the moment, but I think that's the way to go. I think that's good. So, I think we'll stick some heater hoses on and see where that takes us. Oh, I've got to connect up that low pressure line too. These heater hose block-offs are actually standard equipment on some earlier Holdens. They weren't equipped, I think, with heaters. Some of them weren't drilled, and some of the ones that were drilled had these guys on them. I used them. They're actually proper Holden ones, I think, those. I'm not sure. I've had them forever, and I use them on the engine stand because I don't use a heater on the engine stand. I think we're making enough heat as it is. So I'm going to put the heater hoses on. Probably should wait till I get that. I painted one of my daughter's rooms in the other place, which is why I've got, oh, here we go. This one was already brass, and normally I put a brass fitting in the block here, the Cleveland's. Oh, it's already got one, so I didn't bother. If you can see there, down there. Have I got the heater thing, the temperature gauge sender? Just a moment. So these heater hoses, you can buy the proper ones. This is not the right one, but it looks like it's got a different part number. Oh, this says VL 5 litre petrol 304. There's a 6-cylinder hold one that fits as well. Now these go, one goes in there and one goes to here, at the other side through that brass union. Through there, now I think this one here goes first and then goes through the heater tap into the core. The XD is plumb like that, and I mean, I have replaced hoses, so there's a chance I got it wrong somewhere along the line, but I don't even know actually if this is the right clamp. It looks like it, but it looks also like it might not be sort of broad enough. I'm not sure. So on the Falcon, damn, that's a lot of hose, isn't it? We've got this one going first. I might just take that off, it might make things a bit easier. That one goes first. and then this one, but that looks like it's going to cross over. Just a sec. Put a couple of hoses on. Don't like these clamps. Person sold them, they're Icon clamps or something. I like Trident. I've left some space there. It's just set up the same as the Falcon. I've left that one a bit long. I'm going to cut that when I get the heater tab. It's a vacuum operated heater tab, just plugs into that. And I've got to buy a vac hose as well. So that has to be changed. I've got another tree for it. I think I've got... Oh, this is an older manifold. This is a square bore manifold. So I can use the plastic tree off the 6. It's got a couple of them actually. Look at this. Paint lifted. It didn't. I've done some bad adhesion. Changed out the temperature sender under there. I've left the alternator out because I'm going to start redoing this. And I've got to also prepare the loom on the gearbox. So that's got 7 pins. So 2 are going to be neutral start, 2 are going to be reverse light, 3 are speedo transducer. So there's a subloom that sort of plugs into that and then goes down to the transmission. Once I put those cool lines on, I can put and wire this up. I can put the alternator on. I think the alternator wiring, if it doesn't reach, yes, it will reach, depending on how it's sort of routed or routed. I don't know how you say it. That will be fine. So we've got, obviously, nice. We've got exciter circuit, we've got charge wire, we've got 7-volt takeoff for choke. If that's what that is, that could be other way around, I'm not sure. That looks like crap, so we'll do something about that. But, you know, in all, it's not looking too bad. Right, a couple of things. Right hand PCV valve, I've got the grommet there for it, so that looks nice and sort of finished off. What else is there? You've got to take that off. We've got a phenolic spacer. Where's the other gasket? Here. It's 1 inch, sort of like Bakelite type stuff. I don't like, whoopsie, hang on a minute. I don't like when you get this sort of thing and you have all that overhang. I mean, I always cut it off. It looks terrible, but it looks better than that. So I tend to mark them and cut them with a blade, just so that the installation looks a little bit tidier. We all know it's aftermarket, but we don't want to advertise the fact that everything's aftermarket on this thing, or at least not everything, but some of this sort of stuff. So we can just take that off and I'll trim them and it'll look a little bit tidier. There's still a bolt on the bell housing I've got to put in, which I forgot about. These are 6-cylinder Radiator, sort of hex drive self-tapper type things. They'll sort of secure that power steering low pressure line there. I still have to get the convoluted tube to go up to the air cleaner, and I've got the radiator things here too. I bought some new radiator rubbers, and they fit really well, which is marvellous because I didn't expect, that. So we'll put the carburetor on in a sec. We're going back with the original Holly 600, just because I think it's I think they're perfect for a 302. They don't sort of bog down too much, and they also offer enough fuel if you sort of rev them right out. These things are capable of some pretty high revs. I'll put that coil on, but it's a bit crooked. Wrong way. That's better. It's awfully high, isn't it? I wonder how that's going to go with the air cleaner. It should be alright. I think originally they sat quite high. I'm not sure that they sat that high though. I have to do something about the throttle. I'm going to have to get creative with that too. Just looking at this, it is high, but it does work. It lines up and everything. Yeah, perfectly actually. They are quite high anyway because it's not quite an inch, but the spacer for the EGR plate is normally quite high. I was digging around the shed getting the cooler lines out, and I found these two old fuel lines. There's this one. That's a Ford one, 5/16. It's a little bit manky, but there's still at its end on it. That isn't going to be a thermoquad one. That's an early one, I think. I didn't want to cut the end off. I found this one, which is equally as manky, and I've started using a Scotch-Brite disc to sort of make it look nice. And I think that's going to do well. I've got to clean up the inside of it and just use a rubber hose between the fuel inlet and here. The Ryco, I'm using a Ryco filter. Somebody said they have a habit of coming apart, which you don't want that anywhere near distributor, but I normally have them where the fuel line comes through the inner guard and just have a Ryco there, so if anything does happen it just drains away. But yeah, I'll clean this up and just throw a bit of clear on it. And I've got to clean the inside though. That's the bit that I'm worried about, to make sure there's nothing nasty in there. I could even paint it silver or black, but I think I'll just clear it. So I've been messing around with cooler lines. Where did I put it? The old cooler line. It's probably under the car. And I spent ages cleaning it up. There it is there. This one. And not going to fit. Not even worth it. So I've just been making a new one. Here, I've had to take that pan fill thing off. And I'm sort of running it over so I can still get the starter motor out if I need to, because I'm not even sure about that starter motor. But I can't remember how C4s are plumbed. I think those other lines were off a 6-cylinder because they sort of joined down the bottom. So there's another union. Where is it? Oh, just above that servo cover, about there. Bring it down and across, and I want to keep them low. Now it's a bit different on the XW, even though it's the same transmission. I'm ending them there, and then I'll use rubber to go from there up to the cooler. The cooler's on the way. It's a PWR. But these lines go above the mounts as well, but they're proper ones. But then they kind of dogleg in. Where do they come out? And then go down. So they're actually quite high, those ones. This has a clapper starter. I can see it down there. Just a minute. Where's my torch? I was worried about the exhaust though. There they are down there. Right. So they're above the starter. I'm going to go below it because it's just easier. I should have done this. I'm spewing I didn't do it when the engine was out, but I was in a sort of a hurry to get the engine in, and I should have taken my time because this is just annoying the crap out of me, but it is what it is. What can you do? I bought this thing years ago and just stick the thing in against there, and then you pull that handle around. I can't do it now, and you get your bend. Now normally I do my own bends by hand if it's 3/16 because you can just bit by bit. You can't do it in one hit because it'll just kink. But I've got the tunnel to think about with this. Now that flare's pretty rubbish. That's just off a cheap flaring tool I got, and that is the second hand one off another cool line I had. We should call this the hydroblasting and what do you call it, plating channel. These are the last three wheels. Now that one in the middle is actually narrow. It's a 5.5 inch. 5.5, which I didn't know. I thought I had 3, 4, 5, sorry, 6 inch rims. I've got 4 and I've got a 5.5, so I was like, it's going to be the spare. Painted in jam. That's air dry enamel. It's fantastic stuff as long as you use it for that sort of thing, or brackets, you know, alternator brackets and aircon brackets and stuff like that. You would never paint a car in it. And back in the 80s, they used to do quick jam jobs. Oddly enough, you had to be a fairly good painter to lay it down because it stays soft, so you can't rub out errors. But it's terrible. You wouldn't put that on the outside of a car. It would go dull and, you know, pretty mucky after a very short time. People used to do that sort of thing just to get rid of their car, sticking in a trading post or whatever. Got the odds and ends. I got that back and I've painted that. That's the clutch fan for the ZK and the radiator, which was originally in the XC, but now it's on the front of the XW, waiting to dry off a bit. On that wheel, just jam. Hair dry enamel. I put it thicker on the front because I thought it would look nicer, sort of shinier. It does stay tacky for a while. We've got a day of 30 odd degrees tomorrow, so it's all right for that sort of thing. But if you paint it in the winter, it just stays tacky for ages. It is better than the quick dry in that you get a better finish and it lasts a lot longer. That being said, in this MG, which you can't see, I did the heater box, I would say 18 years ago in that stuff, and it's still nice. So I forgot to weld a bracket to that dipstick thing, and because I've got homemade brake, transmission cooler lines, I can't say I'm unhappy with them unless they leak. So that's all looking all right. I think I would like to, there's an issue because if I have to take the starter out, these might be in the way a bit. I wanted them nice and low and I wanted them away from everything. So I think I need to put a bracket there on the bottom starter motor bolt just to keep them nice and still. Oh, I've got to make up a modulator one too. There's a modulator line. And the thing is, I bought this to make fuel line, but I made cool line instead. I forgot it's $20 for a roll or something. So I'll get another roll to do the fuel line, although I do have to run the fuel. Look how bad that looks down there. God. That's why I was going to paint underneath it or put that deadener stuff because it just looks half done. I reckon though, once it's water cleaned, sort of, what do you call it, steam cleaned, and you know, the shines come off some of this stuff, it'll all sort of blend in. Well, it won't, but I'm hoping. So I've got to run the fuel line outboard down the outer sill, or down on the inside, sorry, the inner sill, down here. That's the way the Falcon does. And I've got to figure out what to do with the return line. Because the XD my XD hasn't got a return line on the carburetor, obviously, but it has got 2 lines going into the sender. And I'm not awfully sure what they are. I've got to put those split pins on that idler too. So, you know, it doesn't look too bad under here. I'm pretty happy with that. As long as it doesn't leak, we're golden. Might have to move that when we get an exhaust, whereas the handbrake. Although that isn't secured properly yet. Got one of these handy dandy fans on. They go that way. The clutch fans, it's an XD one. I think V8s on these use the same fan. I've got one on the XW, one on the XC, have one on the Galaxy. I like them because they can freewheel and, you know, hunky-dory. So I've got to work out a couple of things. So there's little those dirty things that go either side to keep, you know, air from getting behind it. There's one that goes at the bottom. Did I mention to replace those? I did. Now this, for the cooler, has to go under. The only other way, that's actually a better way, is just put a couple of joiners there and bring them up to the side. Do steel joiners, do steel pipes. So I want to drop the radiator in to just see how it sits. And I'll also have to put the shroud in to see if there's enough clearance. If there's not, because the radiator is going to sit below. If you look where it sits there, maybe that's a better spot. You can see it's below the level of that. So it's making me nervous. So I'm just going to go and get the radiator and have a bit of a trial fit, see how it looks. So this guy is, hose in the way. going to sit like that. And that's alright. The $64,000 question though is when the fan shroud's on, is there going to be enough clearance, excuse me, down here? I'm not sure. I should have put that in first, shouldn't I? This thing has been hanging up in this garage for, I'm not kidding, almost 20 years. I'm just going to give it a tub with a hose. I might leave that sticker on. I've got a replacement one, but I like the fact that it's original. There's another couple meant to be on here too. I'm just going to go and give it a bit of a wash. Alright, well they're not fully clean yet, but better than it was. Let's just put that over there. Already I'm seeing problems with those hoses. Let's just put you. Yeah, this is pain in the neck already. So a few years ago I tried my hand at whitening one of these things to no avail. It's a nice warm sunny day today, so I might give it another go. The idea came from a channel called the 8-Bit Guy, and he restores old computers that yellow off like that, and he uses a product called Retro Bright, which isn't available here I don't think. I was just trying it with peroxide, and you splash it on and then wrap it in Glad Wrap and stick it in the sun. So I mean, what the heck, I might as well try again. I'm not expecting anything, so we'll see what happens. I've got NFI what I'm doing. What do you do? Just pour this stuff on? Oh, it's like a paste, isn't it? There we go. Smear it all around. Then wash the bottle off after you finish because you're getting it everywhere. Oops. It's probably pretty corrosive, this stuff. Or at least dangerous to handle. I'm not sure. Stick it in the sun. Probably more. Oh, hang on, slippery. There we go. She'll be right. Have to keep it out of the way of the dog. There we go. I just got to go and wash my hands now. That's looking quite good. Under there. If that rumour is true about these things splitting, I've never seen one split, but if it's true, well then, you know, that might siphon the tank out, but at least it won't go all over the exhaust and ignition. So that can just sit there, and I'll cut it to length when I get this steel pipe through here. The other thing I don't like is I don't like this moving around. They're not strapped from forward. I think that's a thread. I wonder if I can just put a clamp there. That'll hold it nice and rigid. I don't want anything, you know, vibrating around or doing what it shouldn't be doing. The thing is, I might have an idle stop solenoid. That might be what one of those other wires is too that I saw and I didn't know what it was. Ford were never tidy with sticker placement. I remember some of them on the XD, but I don't remember this Beware of Fan one. I think if it did have one, it blew off very quickly. The other one sort of sits down there. And a lot of people go to lengths to make sure they're nice and straight. The only ones you need to get straight are the ones on the outside. Yeah, I might put it there, because there it might come off too easily. I'll put it there. Oh, that'll stick beautiful. Ooh. Oh man, come on, good bubbles. Well, Ford probably wouldn't do a better job than that anyway. That's what the XDs was like. It was just, it wasn't on that scene, but you know, I think it was over there. But I don't think it matters, because I keep seeing things on these cars that are different, including people who wrote to me in the comments about whether wiring for the wiper is, the plug sits underneath. There's a little hole at the clip that the plugs attaches it to the thing. Mine's set above it. Now the other thing you can do with these, for a short while in 1985 I was cleaning cars at Nielsen Holden and detailing them, and detailers there, the used car manager would never spend money on armour oil. He used transmission fluid. I'll show you what I mean. And you're just putting a little bit on a rag. Now I did the bumpers on the Sigma with this stuff. I don't think I said anything in the video about it. And they stayed looking good for such a long time. No, they don't, but... But just a tiny bit of transmission fluid, a minute amount, goes a long way. And obviously you don't dip it over the bottle, you pour it in so you can still use the contents of the bottle for its intended purpose. And I'm just going to go sort of around the inside of the rim there and down this side, and I'll do the top when this is bolted in the car. But, you know, it does make old plastic look pretty good. You don't want to use too much of it, is that dirt and debris and so forth will stick to it. You see, you just put it down like this and just rub it all around, so that that little bit you put on your rag does a huge area. Now, being plastic, it's not going to seep underneath the stickers. I'm only going to sort of go up to them. But already that looks terrific. It's temporary, you know, it's not a permanent thing, but it does look smart, I think. And these guys will just sit over the top. They're the ones with the new rubbers in them. They look quite swish. So this radiator doesn't look that crash hot. I repaired this one. I resoldered it because I got a leak. And it was a leak through physical damage, not rust. I use these guys all the time. Yeah, I don't want the transmission cooled from the radiator, so I bypass it altogether and I use the big PWR cooler. And I bought this as a core only, which is this guy, 5/16 barbs. And I've got one on the XW, one on the XD, and there was one on the Galaxy, on the old Galaxy, and there's going to be one on this. So what I've got to do is figure out where the best place for it is, because I've got to think about line placement. Yeah, actually, over to this side is even better, because then it's centered to these. So I'm just going to put it there, I think. This was a core only, so it didn't come with a fitting kit. Normally they have barbs, screwing barbs and fitting kits and all this. And they can be 230 bucks. There was an eBay discount, I think 114 bucks or something. And it works better than any other cooler. They're absolutely, they're absolutely brilliant. The surface area with all these fins is fantastic. And they drain through each of these. It's not just a loop, if you know what I mean. Really, really good kit. Using this zip tie fitting kit, it's got some self-adhesive rubber pads and springs. Sorry, I'm not using the springs. That would be for electric fan installation. I buy these 2 or 3 at a time. They're sort of $8 each or something, cheaper than going elsewhere for them. Although some of them are dreadful. These ones are actually pretty good, but there's not really a brand on it. Anyway, this is the last of them. I buy them for the engine stand because the engine stand's a great way of testing radiators as well as engines. And, you know, Bob's your uncle. You may just go in nice and easily. Just thought I'd stop and have a chat. Do you want to chat? So it's going pretty well. I'll show you what I'm doing. I've just got there's a couple of things. I need a piece of booster hose. Is there a port under there? No, there's not. That's cool. So if I have the EGR valve on, I can have that, and then just take the back advance from there straight onto the distributor. I still haven't done the wiring. Cool lines are all good. Just got to secure them. I don't like how loose they are. I've got to clean the top of that and put the rubber thing on. And the cooler's on and plumbed, and it looks really hunky-dory. Power steering, I'm not really happy with that, but it's doable. So I think I've run out of time. I'll put the heater tap on. I've got to just neaten things up, so I'll put... That's an air conditioning compressor wire. No, it's not the compressor wire. What's that? That's for the... Oh yeah, goes to the receiver dryer. So that acts as a pressure switch. If there's no gas, the compressor won't go on. So I'll just put a bit of heat shrink over that, and I'll have it sort of all taped, so it's all nice and neat. Those clamps are rubbish. Really not liking these clamps. And I'm going to redo the fuel line. Oh, I've got to see if the tail shaft fits. Just a moment. So I'm going to take these out, but they're a little bit stiff to move, so I don't want to force it because it's old. That's still yellow. I tried my peroxide thing again. It still didn't work. It was out there for about 2 hours in the blazing sun. It's a pity about the colour. What else do I have to do? One thing that's a bit of a relief is the tail shaft fits. I thought they were slightly different lengths. I'm out of focus. Hang on a sec. And here we go again. Is the tail shaft fits. I thought they were slightly different lengths, but they're not. That rear axle has a big drip hanging out of it. The pinion seal's gone. I might just give the diff to a diff place and say, can you put a new one in and clean it up? I just can't be arsed doing it. And I haven't got the tools here for setting up preload and that sort of stuff. So I'll take all these arms off, check all these. I've got to cut metal out of the back here because there's rust, and there's also holes where the gas tank was. I've been in touch with an exhaust place. I'm using a 2 1/4 single, or 2 1/2 single. I want it quiet. It's a cruiser, so that exhaust will come out. And it's just grotty down the back here, but I'll try and clean up as best I can. But I do have a lot of cars to do. Just looking through this wiring, obviously the neutral start, that's the trigger I wanted to reroute. Any wiring I'm removing, I've just terminated with a bit of heat shrink, and I'll just have a little bit of that showing through the tape when I wrap it. That'll show that there's 2 blue cables under there. This is all that's going into the engine. That's all that controls the engine. That's coil, oil, temperature, auto choke, and idle up solenoid. Or anti-dieseling solenoid, I should probably call it. I've got to find one of those. So I can just sort of map that where it goes back. So I'll be winding it. Right, I can just start winding that now. Yeah, I'll start taping that up now. Does it have to be separate? Hang on, I just need to see the... I'm not sure if that has to be separate or together. This is convoluted tubing. Now the XD has this, but it's bigger. I bought the wrong diameter. But I've just been lengthening some wires and about to shorten some as well. That's the oil pressure sender, and that'll stay in the same spot. Like, that's not causing any grief at all. I need a blade to cut this stuff, because that way you can cut it nice and straight. And yeah, so the XD has this stuff too. And that's where I first saw it as a kid. And I went to use it on Jason's. No, I hate that stuff. I couldn't understand why. But so the problem I've got is less than ideal because I've got to use a, what do you call it? a switched positive to the choke, to the auto choke, because the alternator for the V8 that I've got hasn't got the 7-volt takeoff. It doesn't matter, it's not the end of the world, but I'd sooner it have one. The other thing is, good thing about these 6s is they use a 12-volt coil. That's the loom for the automatic. So you've got your transducer and neutral start. Now that plugs straight into the neutral start on the 6-cylinder gearbox, the Borg Warner. The C4 has the old-fashioned double bullet thing, so I might cut that off. I've got another XC loom, somewhere a ratted one, which would have had that on it, but I don't know what I did with that. And I don't know what XEs use in terms of C4s in 302s with the connected to the auto, to the mutual safety. I would think it'd be the same as that double bullet one, the 4-gang bullet terminal thing. I'll show you what I'm talking about. That's the neutral start for the C4, and that's the double bullet connector. Am I in the right spot that you can see there? Now these connect on the earlier Falcons up at the firewall over that here. Manuals have one of these bridged. The auto, the what do you call it, neutral start one, is just a cable that crosses over with 2 wires going down to the reverse light switch. And I've got one somewhere and I couldn't find it to put in the XC. So I don't know if this works, I have to try it out. Should be alright. We'll give it a bit of an overhaul and use that. Now, because this has a transducer, transducers have a bit of a lead on them too. This subloom goes down almost to the top of the gearbox, goes to the top of the gearbox actually. So the lead on that needs to be considerably shorter. So I might just cut that off and cut that off here somewhere and just buy a J-car plug and do it that way. I've just got to make sure I wire it the right way. Right, so I've done as much as I'm going to do for this video. Haven't put the wash bottle in yet, got to give it a wash. Pardon the pun. It is quite dirty. And I also have to change these belts. They're just there because. And the exhaust. Got to put an exhaust system on. Plumb this. One of them goes back to the tank. The other one goes to vent back into the carburetor, the purge. Hang on, is that on properly? Got that vacuum tree there. I might just put a bit of tape over there. That's for the modulator. There's something else. Oh yeah, I've got to run a T-piece, I think, for the air cleaner as well. I also haven't rigged up the TBS switch. I made a mistake before. The EGR runs straight off one of the ports on the thermoquad. It's the vac advance that runs off this. There's straight vacuum in one side, distributor on the other, and the carburetor port on the other one. There's actually 2 TBS switches that run the vac advance if you look in the manual. So it's all looking good. Dipstick's too long. That rag's just there to stop it. Anything getting down in that tube. What else have I got to do? Got to connect up the auto choke. That wire that I've tied up there is just, it's terminated. And that's for that anti-dieseling solenoid that goes there. We're also going to replace the fuel line. That's just trash. The other thing is the V8 throttle cable normally comes around the front of the engine and then back into this thing here. This is a Holly, so I've got to rig something up to pull from underneath, or use the 6-cylinder cable and just pull from there. I might just start with the 6-cylinder cable for now. We'll just see how it goes. I've got to connect the vacuum to this thing because I always have them as being functional. And what was the other thing I was going to talk about? I can't remember. Can't be too important. Where does this connect? Oh yeah, the heat riser. I looked online and they charge $60 or something for a small bit of tube. I thought that was quite expensive. You have to have the heat riser tube though, not because it's particularly functional, but it just looks so unfinished without it. Perfect. I might get a 1/2-inch phenolic spacer. I think that 1-inch one is a little bit too tall, but it does look quite nice. all being well, next time we'll start him up. Well, on that note, I'm going to say thanks very much for watching. Take good care of yourselves, and I'll see you soon.